Hello, everyone. It's Fred Staub and Les Jackson. We've got a full 2 hours of great automotive information for you. We're going to start off with a very cool vehicle from the folks at Cadillac. This vehicle has 682 horsepower. Yep, it's the Escalade V. We're going to talk about that. And we've got a lot of new models coming out this week, refresh models, Les Jackson, including the Subaru Legacy. We're going to talk about that one, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. And over at Hyundai, we're going to, in a talking tech session, Hyundai may just break the Class 8 trucks diesel addiction, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, we're talking about hydrogen power. And you know, I don't know if you know this or not, as far as 53-foot trailers, Hyundai is one of the biggest manufacturers of them. I think it's one other, Great Dane and Hyundai.
I honestly never noticed that.
Yeah. And there's a shortage of them. They're very expensive. They're very hard to find. So, but so Hyundai definitely plays in the Class 8 world, and they'll be playing there some more. And then we're going to talk about Toyota turboing the Highlander, turbo power for that. Mitsubishi also has their plug-in hybrid, the new edition of the Outlander plug-in hybrid. We're going to talk about that one. And also, we're going to hear from Bob Gritzinger, who is the editor-in-chief at Ward's Auto, about their 10 best auto interiors. And they've combined the 10 best auto interiors with user interfaces, which really, when you think about it, the interior is a user interface, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's much more. It's your rolling office. And Bob always has really interesting information.
Yep. And then no surprise here, by the way. Look what car is going to be pacing the Indy 500. Yes, it is none other than the Z06 Corvette, and Sarah Fisher is going to be driving it. She's going to be pacing it, of course. She's driven in the Indy 500, and I believe was a team owner for a while. So
she's a cool lady, cool car. Although, Corvette's kind of taking over the Indy 500 pace car world.
I think they actually pay for the right to do that. That's how it works.
I guess they do.
It's about advertising and visibility.
Well, talk about product placement.
Yeah, really. Exactly. That's all coming up on Cruise Control. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, all that and more. You can do that by going to cruisecontrolradio.com. We hope you're going to join us on the stream. We're streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. And we always appreciate your comments or suggestions for future story ideas. So I'm Fred. He is Les. And we will be right back. So stay tuned.
This is Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine with co-hosts Fred Staub and Les Jackson. Everything you need to know about new and used cars. Industry news. We'll fix or repair your car on the air. Fasten your seatbelts and let us take the wheel. Now, your ride is about to begin because you're on Cruise Control. Cruise Control. Cruise Control.
Hey, hello there, everybody. Welcome to Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine. As we are here every week, you know me, I'm Les Jackson. You know him, that's Fred Staub. And as usual, we've got a ton of things to cover. We have a guest coming. We have some updates. We have no free gifts. Important to mention that, by the way.
We're not parting out our press cars.
No, we're not allowed to do that, which is probably a good rule.
Yeah.
However, we are parting out everything we know about these cars. So let's get started.
Yeah, let's talk about our first vehicle we're going to tell you about. That is the VEE SUV, the Escalade V. Lights it up with 682 horsepower, launch control, and a whole lot more. You know, I work with a guy that said, "Oh, that's an Escalade." That's how he said it.
Well, hey, whatever you call it,
right?
It is what it is, and we're going to talk about Subaru updating the Legacy. Not definitely, they never allow it to get long in the tooth. It's always something new.
Yeah, and that's one of those sedan-like things. So we'll talk about that.
It's a car.
Yeah.
It's.
Yep, exactly. And we're also going to talk tech, where Hyundai might get diesel trucks, Class 8 diesel trucks, off their diesel addiction. Yep, hydrogen power. That's what they're talking about.
That's a very, very interesting thing. I hope it works. And Toyota, I didn't think they would do this, but Toyota turbos the Highlander.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Interesting.
And as Les mentioned, we're going to have a guest, editor-in-chief of Ward's Auto, Bob Gritzinger, will join us to talk about the 10 best interiors and this year user interfaces. So they kind of combine the two.
Right.
Because the interior is basically a user interface. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. It's a completely different experience. I've said it before. I kind of feel sorry for people who haven't bought a new car in the last 10 or 12 years because, boy, it's a real interface now. It's an office.
Yeah, and you need to do some study work to make sure you can.
You need to do your homework.
Yeah.
Yep.
And as you and I know, what makes a good interface is one, I don't have to open an owner's manual. If I can just go right in there and do everything I have to do, then I know it's a pretty good user interface. But Bob's going to be by a little bit. And we're going to get started on cruise control. So stay tuned because we will be right back. I'm Fred Staub. He is Les Jackson. Buckle up because we got a lot of automotive information coming your way on your on-air automotive magazine, Cruise Control.
Cruise Control.
Welcome back to Cruise Control. We're still your on-air automotive magazine, as we are every Saturday.
Yep.
And, you're the guy with all the lead foot stories.
Well, Les, do you feel that there is a need for a 6.2-liter V8, 682 horsepower, or 508 kilowatt, or 653 pound-foot of torque, or 885 nanometer powerful SUV, giant body on frame.
That's Newton meter, my friend.
Newton meter. Yes, I'm sorry. That's how they wanted to rate their cars that way, Cadillac. They put Newton meters on the back.
Well, that's the international standard.
But that was when the Germans were running that branch, and I don't think it makes much sense anymore anyway. But
well, no.
But here it is, the Escalade V. Which is, as I mentioned, quite a machine. It is sort of like if you made a Corvette into an SUV and you made it body on frame.
Right.
This was just released this week. It's a 2023 model. Listen to some of the things that come with the V designation. Unique front and rear fascias, V series, quad exhaust ports, exclusive 6-piston Brembo front brakes, edge red brake calipers, unique 22-inch aluminum wheels, standard magnetic ride control, selectable V mode with driver customizable performance driving settings and lowered suspension, active exhaust valves that control the throaty V8 growl. That's right from the Throaty, yeah. Of course, it has the Escalade's huge 38-inch of total diagonal display dashboard. It has an AKG studio reference 36-speaker audio system. Super Cruise is available. And this is a big supercharged V8, as I said. 653 pound-feet of torque at 4,400 engine RPM. You can open up the exhaust. You can make it sound different. There's different modes, stealth, tour, or sport. And then you have all-wheel drive, including tour, sport, or snow, ice. What do you think this thing is going to cost, Les Jackson?
Oh, listen, I think at least $20,000.
I'm saying $125,000.
I think, yeah.
That's the sticker. That's the sticker. So.
Yeah, I'd say I'm going to go 130.
Okay. Okay, now I'll ask you the follow-up question. What will it sell for? Because that's a different question.
I can see some of them going for as much as 150. Depending, if it's popular, if people really like it, the bragging rights folks, then a good solid 150.
Me, I'd rather have the diesel engine that I reviewed not that long ago because it got decent mileage.
This won't.
This will not. Yes, I can say that. This will not get that mileage. It will be thrilling. They demoed the launch control, and I think a lot of it, remember, the big engine, that 6.2, is the engine that goes in Corvettes. And
That's right.
Now, it's tuned to different numbers. Let's face it, this is a big tune of this engine because it's got a lot more weight. So, it's the same engine though in many ways. I don't know if there are actual differences. Probably in intake manifolds and exhaust manifolds and accessory mounting and things like that.
Different gearing, just because you have to change the torque to move all that weight.
Yeah, exactly.
But
what do you think this thing weighs?
6,000
pounds?
I'm thinking upwards of 7,000.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you can set the launch control in it just like you're doing a drag car type launch. I wonder how many people will use that.
Do you think the Cadillac engineers just went to Corvette, kind of said, we need to go into the parts bin and take stuff?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of it is adapted from the Corvette.
Sure.
What do you think the market is for something like this? How many will they sell? Guess how many can they build is probably the bigger question.
Yeah, but how many do they have to sell? A few thousand around the country. There are plenty of people that just want, the highest end of whatever they're interested in. And
I think it might be a future collectible too. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but coming up, Subaru Legacy. Stay tuned.
Cruise Control.
And welcome back to Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine. Good to have you with us. I'm Fred Staub. He is none other than Les Jackson. We scrape around the auto industry and find out all the information that's coming out. We keep you up to date. If you're going out to buy a vehicle, you got to be prepared today, and that's what we're trying to do, keep you prepared. And you got to know what's coming up, because maybe it's something great you want to wait for, and you let's say you were going to your Subaru dealer, Les Jackson, and you're like, I think I might buy a Legacy because I don't think that will change too much in 2023. Well, it will, and we're going to tell you about it because they talked about it this week. They debuted the refreshed 2023 Legacy sedan. One of the key things on the inside, it gets that great vertical display for navigation that some of the other vehicles in the Subaru lineup are getting, or I think it started with the Outback. I think it's going to move completely through the Subaru lineup. Really, they've upgraded the interior pretty tremendously, I think, on this car. And also, there's some great features. The latest version of EyeSight Driver Assist is now standard. Touring XT comes equipped with a wide-angle mono camera to enhance the eyesight system's field of view, which is interesting, a wide-angle mono camera, because remember, this system is based on 2 cameras that sit up around the rear view.
Yeah, that's
mirror.
right.
Wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto is standard with that 11.6-inch Multimedia Plus system. That's the system that has that vertical display. Really, really nice system. I was just in the Outback Wilderness edition, and I really liked it. Easy to see. Sport trim now comes standard with the 2.4-liter turbo boxer engine. They've done a nice update here. This is not just wheel covers and badging. There's some important updates. I think I would certainly wait for this model if I was looking at a Legacy because, you've got safety, you've got infotainment. What do you think?
It really, this is one of these models that has enough changes, desirable changes, that it kind of hurts the ones that are still sitting in car dealerships because people, just like you said, well, why should I buy the 22 when I can buy the 23 and get all this neat stuff? Now, of course, we're in a very weird situation where you can't find any 22s anyway.
That's true. It's a little bit different. I mean, I always, and maybe it's just a pet peeve of mine, but I always worried that people would be going out to buy a new vehicle and not realize all these great changes were coming, and obviously certain dealers would never tell them that all the changes were coming. You'll pay a little more, but hey, your choice. That would be the way to do it. Like, hey, I've got this 2022 model. It's got the older screen and a couple other things, but, you have that as an option. But if you want to spend a little bit more, you have the new one with a larger screen, and those are some of the things that are coming up. I don't know if they do that or not. I think they want to sell with.
Well, I think they do if they're looking for something specific. Like I really want a larger screen. What's the best way to go? And they research it. But otherwise, I think it's a matter of I need a car. I need a car in this price range. I'm going to narrow it down to 3 different brands and color.
And I need to leave here with it today or, seal the deal today. So, in that case, and maybe some people just don't care. They don't think that much about it, Oh,
that's right.
So they're, but it's good updates, I think, and certainly worthwhile updates. And it includes some of the things that, we typically see in these mid-cycle refreshments, like revised grille and revised wheels and all that. But this one is a little bit more than that. When you get into the technology, get into the screen, you get into updated safety. So interesting.
It's a lot. Do we have a price on that? I don't think so.
No price on it. I wonder what the sales numbers are like actually for Legacy, because after all, it is a sedan, isn't it?
Yeah, and actually, to be honest, I haven't seen a Subaru sedan, a relatively new one, in can't tell you when.
I sent a friend to Subaru to buy a car. She hadn't bought a car in a long time, and she said, "Well, I don't need an SUV. I'd like one of your sedans," and they told her, "Don't buy it. You won't be able to sell it. Nobody wants them."
Oh, come on.
Probably they didn't have one.
They probably didn't.
Yeah.
But honestly, do you see anything other than Foresters and
Crosstreks? I see a lot of
Crosstreks. That's all I see.
Yeah. Crosstrek is great, and that will be getting that's going to get this big screen in the dashboard as well, and some other updates. So, I see mostly Crosstreks and mostly Outbacks.
Yeah. Okay.
So we are going to take a look next at. Let's talk a little tech, shall we? Absolutely. Yeah, because Hyundai as I told you when we got into this, when we opened this edition of Cruise Control, Hyundai is a big player in the Class 8 field, but really in the truck field, they really are one of the biggest manufacturers of 53-foot trailers. And that's kind of interesting because, I don't think a lot of people know that. I think it's
honestly
Great Dane and somebody else, but
well, I know Volvo makes some heavy trucks, but
not I'm talking about the trailers here.
Oh, you mean the and I had no idea Hyundai made these things. I do know that Hyundai makes big cargo ships.
Yes.
That's a heavy industry.
Yeah. Well, now they're going to not only make the trailers, but they're talking about getting into hydrogen power with fuel cells. They've been showing this off. There's the ACT Expo, which is the largest advanced transportation technology and clean fleet event. Clean feet event. That would be good. You definitely want clean feet. But they are looking at hydrogen power for the vehicles. And wouldn't that be a way for them to get into the actual heavy-duty tractors? And when you go to California, a lot of these ports will only let you in if you have a very clean, up-to-date diesel right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and so I think this could make them a leader in the hydrogen fuel cell market. I really do. And will that stir that form of energy on in the passenger car market or passenger SUV market? Is a good question. I don't know. I mean, it seems like a smart way to go. Of course, Tesla has their truck and they're starting to take orders. And I believe for their Class 8 tractor, it is, I think you have to put down $20,000 and it will be built sometime.
It'll be built sometime, somewhere in your lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. But
yes.
So, maybe hydrogen fuel cells make a better sense for larger Class 8 trucks.
And Hyundai does make the hydrogen fuel cell little truck, pickup SUV-ish thing. I drove one of those about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And it runs great.
Yeah. So it will be interesting to see what happens with that. Let's also talk about a little bit different powertrain. Toyota Highlander. This week they announced that the 2023 Toyota Highlander will get a turbocharged engine and a new 12.3-inch screen for limited and platinum models. The screens keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and that plays into our next story with Bob Gritzinger from Ward's Auto, because he's talking about user interfaces and interiors. So Bob will be with us after the break. Stay tuned to Cruise Control.
Yeah, giant screen.
Cruise Control.
And welcome back to Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine. Fred Staub and Les Jackson with you, as always, bringing you the information. What's going on in the automotive world? We were talking about whether you should buy, the 2022 Legacy or the 2023 Legacy. It's just good to know what's out there so you can make a good choice. And that's something that Ward's Auto has been doing for a long time. They really... They have a section called Ward's Intelligence, Les Jackson, and that is kind of what we love, that because you want intelligence when you make a big purchase. You want to know what's going on. You want to know what's out there. And with that in mind, Editor-in-Chief Bob Gritzinger makes a return appearance to Cruise Control. Bob, welcome back, and you're going to kind of take us through the 2022 Ward's 10 Best Interiors and UX list, user interface list, right?
Correct. User experience.
User experience.
Yeah.
Why'd you combine the two of them this year?
Well, we initially, when we created the 10 Best UX 6 years ago, we saw that as kind of a whole separate entity unto itself. It was too hard to judge those things and the interior and do both justice. So we created a separate award. We have 10 best engines and now 10 best engines and propulsion systems, because you got to include the other things. And then we had 11 years of 10 best interiors, 6 years of 10 best UX. You guys know everything has merged in these interiors, and it is impossible to separate the user experience from the interior. So we rejiggered our judging criteria to make sure that there was balance between interior materials, fits, finishes, feel, comfort, functionality, those kinds of things. And then combined with an equal weighting of ADAS functions, audio systems, screens, connectivity, all those kinds of things. Put it all together, 10 best interiors and UX. And we've chosen our 10. We had 22 nominees.
Wow.
This time around. Sometimes it's a longer list. Some people have asked, why no GM? They just were not in the product cycle at the point where we were evaluating.
Gotcha.
So
now Bob,
things like the Hummer EV and the Lyric will be considered next year.
Now, do you do how I test a press vehicle? I get in it and I don't open up any manual or anything, and I see, can I use everything? Like, can I just jump in this car or SUV and just fire it up and, you know, tune the radio and turn on the HVAC and, you know, find the fader for the instruments to see if they're, you know, make them bright enough? That's kind of how I test them.
Well, or how about just putting the vehicle in gear? I sort of my kind of test and to the press to our PR friends out there. I don't actually do this, but my test is kind of, if I just toss the key to my brother-in-law who needs to run to the store in my car, do I have to explain to him how to start it, how to put it in gear, where the various controls are? And if I have to do that, I'm just going to tell him, you should drive your own car. Right?
That's right.
Well, but don't you find, Bob, that most people, I certainly do, most people that ride with me, frequently they say, how do you know how to drive all these different things? These are confusing controls, which they are vehicle to vehicle. We're used to it because we test them all the time, but a lot of vehicles just aren't intuitive. And do you mark that down because of it?
Oh, absolutely. Definitely on the list. I think it's phrased, does it feel like an alien spaceship?
Okay.
And then we go from there. Now you have to bear in mind that as you look at these vehicles, today's vehicles compared to even 5 years ago are alien spaceships to a lot of people.
Sure, they are.
To us, and people will learn them, just like they learned how to tune a digital radio instead of pushing 6 buttons across the dash there.
Let's jump into the list.
Okay.
I saw this vehicle for the first time. I remember it was raining. I was charging my Mach-E press vehicle, and a guy comes up to me and says, well, I need to charge my vehicle. And I said, well, there's 4 slots there, and I'm only taking one of them. He goes, no, I need to use that one because it starts with Android Auto. And I look up, and it's the iX, and it's a guy from BMW. It's got all. So we stood there in the rain for an hour and talked about the vehicle and that. So, and it was a very, very nice guy, but it was a fun moment. But anyway, let's talk about this iX. We talk about BMW a lot, and sometimes they can be a little confusing on the inside.
Can be. If you jump back to that, if it's possible to jump back to that shot that shows the entire cockpit.
I think it's coming up.
I mean, this car is a tour de force in terms of the total environment in the interior, and a kind of a dramatic shift from what we're used to with BMWs. Yes, it still has an iDrive controller, but it is, as we know, every generation it gets more intuitive, more functional, and in this case, it's jewelry. If you look at that shot with that wood inlaid right into the iDrive controller knob.
Yep.
Look at the clean execution. They did this hexagon pattern that flowed from the seat fabric into the dashboard, into the speaker grill, and back out again. And for BMW, I mean, this is something that was just dramatically new in terms of materials and design, styling. And then, wow, turn on the immersive sound. I sat for 45 minutes in a driveway just playing everything that I always wanted to hear directly into my body. It's a great thing.
Now let's move along to the next one, because this one's a little bit different, a lot less expensive, very popular. Les just drove it and was very impressed with it, the hybrid version of it. And we're talking about none other than the Ford Maverick, inexpensive vehicle, but that doesn't mean you can't have a nice interior, right?
Right, sure. The one we tested was at the high end because we're always asking for those top trim levels for this competition. We want all of the equipment that, the ADAS, all that stuff. So, but this was, if you consider probably the least expensive vehicle on our list, and you can get this truck starting at around 20 grand. And all of that's a perfect example of something I called out about this vehicle. They didn't do a fully extended armrest so that you can fit a larger bottle into that door panel.
Right.
They used this stone textured surface kind of plastic, which at first you kind of go, oh, that could be a little cheesy on a more expensive vehicle. But in this case, it's a material that they can use across the lineup. It looks really up level in the $20,000 truck, and it looks fine in the $40,000 truck.
Yeah.
The usual Ford functionality. I drove this vehicle for a couple hundred miles. Great lane keeping and adaptive cruise control, all kinds of functionality in terms of storage. And then you throw in that, they made it a do-it-yourself truck. You go to Lowe's or Home Depot, you scan that little code, and you build your bike rack. You don't have to buy a $400 attachment.
Right. People were 3D printing accessories in that. Real quick before the break, our next one is one I loved a lot. I had this exact vehicle as a press vehicle, and it's from one of the brands that's just hitting it out of the park, Genesis GV70. We're going to talk with Bob about that after the break and get through the rest of this list, hopefully, because he's got a lot of great insight there. But before that, I'll say I'm Fred Staub, and we will be right back with more Cruise Control.
Cruise Control.
And welcome back to Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine. Bob Gritzinger, who is editor-in-chief of Ward's Auto, is with us, along with Les Jackson. And we are talking about the 10 best interiors and UX
User experience.
User experience, yeah. How you use your vehicle. Of course, the biggest, I think interiors are so important because that's what you look at all the time. And Bob, right before the break, I had just put up a screenshot of the GV70. That is an incredible vehicle. I had that exact one. I reviewed that not that long ago, or one that looked like it. I don't know if it's the exact one.
Kind of a home run in terms of it. We saw this as Genesis finally sort of getting away from, Hyundai style design, but also for the longest time, Genesis has kind of mimicked BMW, I would say, with the straight line of silver buttons. If you look at this interior, it has the switch gear across that oval at the far right end. You push in on that, and it's a switch.
Right.
This thing was amazing. Yeah, everything about it.
I like the knurled knobs, the metal.
Yes.
Everything you touch. It's all about touch points. And if it feels junky, you're going to have a bad user experience, right?
Right. Yeah. But you would, that's a whole nother look with that one.
Next up, Jeep Grand Wagoneer.
The Grand Wagoneer is, the new benchmark for high-end luxury. Just a country club on wheels. And very functional. Lot of look at the wood, the layouts, the screens, and you have the meters. You had the meters showing there. You toss in that Macintosh audio, and it's just puts it in another class.
I agree with you. I was in one of these last fall, and I was just absolutely overwhelmed by the quality of the appointments, the luxuriousness of it, the comfort. It was quiet. It cost more than my first house, but you sort of expect that. Great. I mean, I just can't imagine people not really loving these when they look at them.
Yeah, I think it's going to definitely pull some sales away from some of the other brands that we know that are high-end luxury.
Now, we should mention that a lot of these vehicles on the list are electric. And
right, yeah,
I agree with you. The reason that
is
because they want to make an impression, and they want to have the latest technology, the latest looks. A company that always does interior well, in my opinion, is Kia. No matter if you're getting a less expensive vehicle or a more expensive vehicle, I think they just do a good job with interiors.
Right. And look at just some of the simplicity, the way that the vents just blend right in to that horizontal. But one of the toppers for this vehicle is when you touch that control panel between the knobs, it changes to different functions so that, you don't have a whole bank of switches or buttons for each system. They're accessible through that one bar of buttons. It just changes. It rotates. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, very, very, very good job from Kia. Now, next up, talking about electrics, Lucid Air.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah. How do you not, look up at that, skyline with no headliner up there. The car is, it's one of two startups that we put on the list, and it's just hard to not love everything about what you see here.
Boy, I mean, it's like owning your private jet. The thing is, it's just, you're right. You fall in love with it.
Yeah.
And I compare this to Tesla, and there's no comparison on interior.
So much higher quality.
Yeah. It's phenomenal.
Now, talking about phenomenal, Mercedes-Benz EQS 580. I sometimes need like a roadmap on where to go with Mercedes letters and numbers.
Right. But again, an electric flagship Mercedes. And so where are you going to put your latest and greatest? In your flagship electric car? And I mean, look at the screen in front of the passenger, which is not visible, not visible for the driver. You don't even know it's there, but the passenger can manage all the systems right through that screen.
Like a co-pilot.
Just what a job, Mercedes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We're getting there, right? We got a couple minutes and a couple more.
Yeah,
we got it.
Let's keep going. Les mentioned Rivian, and that is the R1T, which is a great looking vehicle. And
the truck is it takes interior design and vehicle functionality to a different level. The port behind the seats goes all the way through, and you can just load it. When you flip that door open, it flips down. It gives you a seat to sit on, to put on ski boots or hiking boots or take stuff on and off, waders, you name it. Mm-hmm. One cool thing about the Rivian, real quick, is that when you're driving it in adaptive cruise control, it not only indicates the vehicles around you in traffic with little blocks, it shows what type of vehicle that is, whether it's a big semi-truck. They have five different types of vehicles that they can display, so you can keep track. You know exactly. You know that vehicle knows what's around it in traffic.
Beautiful machine. And now we're on to something, a big truck, and Toyota Tundra, formerly known as the boring interior company with seas of gray plastic, has changed its ways.
Yes. And we were in the capstone, which is close to the top. I really wanted to get the team into the 1794 edition, which is really over the top. But the capstone, this is probably similar to the vehicle we tested. And for Toyota, they did great things with the Corolla, which we put on the list, I think, a year ago.
Absolutely.
This is taking it to a truck level. Really nice.
Yeah, really nice. Now, the last one, as I kind of queued up during the break, I wanted to love this car when I got it as a press vehicle. I wasn't crazy about the interior. Mine did not have the Clark Plaid, but we're talking about none other than the Volkswagen GTI. I loved what they did outside. It's hunkered down a little bit. I liked the modern lighting. I thought I wouldn't. But I did that test where I got in this car at night, believe it or not. I couldn't figure out how to turn anything on. I wasn't a fan of the dash, but, hey.
There might be some of that. I think probably that, this, I'm not sure this is showing it, but the initial picture showed that plaid interior.
I love that.
And that's, you get into the car with that going on, and it's exciting right away.
Bob Gritzinger, editor-in-chief at Ward's Auto. We appreciate you bringing all this up. A lot of great vehicles. If people want more information and they want to get more details on why you picked each vehicle, where would they go?
Head out to wardsauto.com. You'll find it all there, and you'll find a profile of each of these vehicles starting May 23rd.
All right, Bob, we'll have to have you back. We love your insight, and it's always good having you on Cruise Control.
Thanks, Fred. Good to see you, Les.
Thank you, Bob. Yes, hope to see you soon.